Yeah. Good evening, councillors and staff and those watching over from home, and welcome back to 2026 and Happy New Year. I hope everyone enjoyed a good break over the Christmas and New Year period. This is our first official meeting of the year at the start of our new meeting cycle. And just for those watching on at home, I just wanted to explain the changes to the process. So this is our first committee meetings for the year, which will happen on the second Monday of every month. And the change that we have this year is that the committee meetings will be happening consecutively, so one after the other. There will be a slight delay between each committee, as we have our chair and the managers of each committee who will be sitting here for the meeting, and then they will switch out for the next committee just a couple of minutes later. If members of the community are wishing to speak on any of the items on any of the committee papers, they can register to speak at the public forum, which will now be held on the third Monday of the month, which is next Monday. So if anybody at home wishes to speak in the public forum on any of the items discussed tonight, they can register on Council's website for speaking at next week's public forum. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Councillor Mort, who is the chair of our first committee, which is the Assets and Infrastructure Committee. Thank you, Councillor Mort.
Thank you, Mayor Borg. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Assets and Infrastructure Committee. I declare the meeting open at 6 p.m. I would like to acknowledge the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. I pay my respects to elders past, present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. Apologies. I have an apology from Councillor Demusky, Councillor Pun, Councillor Gao, and Councillor Stratokopoulos and Councillor Arthur. Can I have a motion to accept apologies and grant leave of absence? Councillor Jameson and so that was moved by Councillor Jameson and seconded by Councillor Allison. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. There are no requests to attend the meeting by audio visual link. So we have a notice of live streaming of the council meeting. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being broadcast live to the public on council's website in accordance with Section 5 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice. The recording will be made available on council's website. Code of Meeting Practice. The order of business is as shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed confidential session, according to Section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recordings of meetings without the express permission of Council, and mobile phones must be turned to silence during the meeting. Disclosures of interest. Has any councillors got a disclosure to declare? There are no disclosures to declare. Can I have a confirmation of the minutes of the previous meetings, ASS 001-26, the Assets and Infrastructure Committee meeting held on the 10th of November 2025. Can I ask this for a summary of the report from the author? Thank you. Mover? Councillor Liu. Moved by Councillor Liu, seconded by Councillor Allison. Okay. Now, sorry. Oh, okay. All right. Can I call for a vote, please? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Committee report ASS 002-26 Tom Ugley's Point Reserve construction. Can I call for a mover, please? Councillor Mahoney. And seconder, Councillor Lansbury. Can I get a summary of the report, please?
Through you, Madam Chair. Councillors, this report seeks Council's acceptance of the preferred contractor for the reconstruction of Tom Ugley's Point seawall and fishing platform construction. This went through an open tender process where we're ready to construct following the engagement of a contractor.
Is there any questions for the director?
Through you, Madam Chair. I just have a quick question, Mr. Heath, about the funding. My recollection was that we'd allocated money in the budget for this year and next year. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
I have a couple of questions also here for the director. Is there certain sections of the wall that will be rebuilt, or is it the whole wall as such that will be rebuilt?
Through you, Madam Chair. It's the reconstruction of the majority of the wall. The wall was seen to be at the end of life. So we did a detailed design in which that looked to reconstruct the wall to meet current standards.
And one other question, that the fencing that wraps around under the bridge, is that being replaced?
So the fishing platform is the final portion. So as it goes within the road reserve and further up towards your northbound road direction, that isn't included within the scope.
Okay. And the project, have we got an idea of how long the actual project will take?
Construction has been identified within this and next financial year.
Okay,
so once the contractor is engaged and we understand their timeframes better, an update to the website of when that final completion date is expected will get provided.
Any councillor is there any more councillors want to ask questions? Okay. So next we have moved by Councillor Mahoney and seconded by Councillor Lansbury. I call for a vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. All those against? Motion carried. Thank you. Next we have ASS 003-25 Embankment Reconstruction Bridge Street Answers Budget Update. I call for a mover. Councillor Liu. And seconded by Councillor Ellison. All those in favour?
Can I ask a question?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Councillors have any questions? Councillor Jemison, you have a question?
This is with the Bridge Street line because I read Dr. Higgett. Yeah, I just want to know how far that wall is. Is that pretty much everything's the same? It's just substituting that part of the wall, the whole wall. What exactly is
Through you, Madam Chair. The report actually identifies the extent of work within a figure 1. The work is to reconstruct and ensure the structural integrity of the wall. So the majority of the existing retaining wall will actually remain. This wall will be underpiled and soil pinned to ensure the structural integrity, with minor portions to be reconstructed. Then the vehicle mitigation barrier on the top surface on Bridge Street will also be reconstructed as part of that.
so it's still going to look the same? It's just
It will look the same. The one major aesthetic change will be vegetation that's existing won't be able to be continue in that location, based on the roots being portionable of the structural issues with the site. So it will essentially look the same as a sandstone retaining wall with a new barrier on top. However, there won't be the vegetation that currently exists.
So we can put vegetation later on. It's just going to be different.
The engineers have identified no vegetation to go back into that location. So we might be able to investigate minor ground covers, but there won't be any trees or any of any canopy or mid-story species.
Being no further questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
I declare the motion carried. There being no further business on the agenda this evening, I declare the meeting closed at 6:09 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Finance and Governance Committee meeting. I declare this meeting open at 6:13 p.m. I have an apology for Councillor Dmowski, Gower, Arthur and Stratopoulos. Are there any other apologies? Could I please have a motion to accept apologies and grant leave of absence? We have a mover, Councillor Marnie. Oh, Councillor Liu, sorry.
No, Marnie's first.
Oh, yeah, okay. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against? There are no requests to attend via audio visual link. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute-taking purposes and also being broadcast live to the public on Council's website in accordance with Section 5 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice. The recording will be made available on Council's website. The order of business is as shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed confidential session, according to Section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Do any councils have any interest to declare? Okay. Fin 00126, confirmation of the minutes of the Finance and Governance Committee meeting held on the 10th of November 25. Could I ask for a mover and a seconder? Anyone? Well, you weren't in the meeting. Councillor Lou. Yeah, probably better from someone that actually did attend the meeting, which is basically just you and me.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. Anyway, I'm happy to move it. I'll move that.
And who seconds it will just me. Okay. Do any councillors have any questions? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. Fin 002-26 investment report as at 30th of November 2025. Can I call for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Marnie and Councillor Lou. Thank you. Do any councillors have any questions? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. Fin 003-26 investment report as at 31st of December 2025. Can I call for a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Marnie and Councillor Lou. Do any councillors have any questions? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. So are we getting into confidential?
If anyone has any questions on confidential,
Right.
you don't have to.
Well, I want to ask on the just this one.
Yeah.
Quarterly budget. Oh, I guess I just want to know we're on track. Okay, that's all that we need to know, I suppose. So anybody have any questions that wants to be asked? Oh, Fin zeros. Where is the item? Next page. Fin 004-26 quarterly budget review report for period ending 31st of December 2025. Can I call for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lansbury and Councillor Marnie. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, do you have one? Yep, Councillor.
Oh, thank you for standing up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, a question on this item regarding the amount for the Kempville play space relocation. Given that the task was necessitated solely by the deterioration of the park, which is Crown land, why is council responsible for this expense? Thank you.
Through the chair, I understand it was a previously endorsed relocation of the park, which we're responsible for, but I'm happy to refer to the Director, Assets and Infrastructure if they've got any further information. Otherwise, we can take it on notice, but I'll refer to the Director.
Through the chair, that's correct. This was a previously endorsed budget to reallocate the playground from Kempfield, with the knowledge that that district playground was coming offline. So there was 3 neighbouring playgrounds in that vicinity identified for an upgrade, and 2 of those playgrounds were funded from the budget that was allocated in the previous term of council, and this is the carryover amount. Gifford Park has its own budget to finish that works off there.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I guess my follow-on question is because I know it was in the budget, it just seemed unfair that we're paying for it even though it was contaminated land owned by the government. And so the second question is the government contributing anything towards it? Thank you.
Through the chair, recollection was it was quite difficult to get the works undertaken that are currently underway, but it's something we could discuss as to whether there was any recourse to seek compensation for the, I guess, the nuisance of the work. I don't know if that's been undertaken, so we can take it on notice and get back to you.
Do we have any other questions? I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. FIN 005-26 property matter request for owner's consent, 6 Dora Street, Hurstville. Can I call for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Allison and Councillor Marnie. Do any councillors have any questions? I just have a quick question that from the report, they're pretty minor and yeah, okay, thank you. I will now call for a vote. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. FIN 006-26 Council Induction and Professional Development Policy for adoption. Can I call for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Liu and Councillor Allison. Do any councillors have any questions? If not, I will call for a vote. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare the motion carries. FIN 007-26 Property Matter Cars Park Cafe Assignment of Lease. Can I ask for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Lansbury and Councillor Mort. Do any councillors have any questions? I just have one that understand that we can just pass the lease on to somebody else. There's nothing complicated about this.
Through the chair, it's permitted under the lease that we can undertake this transaction and approve it, but it requires our consent of council.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. Next closed session. Oh, okay, another one. What's that? Sorry. We got okay. Oh, that one, okay. At this stage of the meeting, the time being 6:22 p.m, I hereby advise that the meeting will move into a confidential closed session to allow consideration of a matter in closed session in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993. This action is being taken to allow discussion of the following items: FIN 006-26 property matter, open space acquisition, 30 Culwala Street, South Hurstville. That in accordance with the provisions of Part 1 of Chapter 4 of the Local Government Act 1993, the matters dealt with in this report be considered in closed council meeting at which the press and public are excluded. In accordance with Section 10A2C, it is considered the matter information that would, if disclosed, confer a commercial advantage on a person with whom the council is conducting or proposes to do business. Okay, so the procedure to move into closed session. Accordingly, members of the press done this one. Then, in accordance with Section 10A, Clause 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, Council into closed session to discuss the item. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Marnie and Councillor Mort. All those in favour say aye. All those against, I declare the motion carried. For the members of the public and press, live streaming will cease and resume following the confidential session of council. Once these items are addressed, the meeting will reopen to the public and the recommendations from the closed session will be confirmed. We will then deal with the remaining items on the agenda if there are any remaining items. So now we need to just be back to the, displaying the recommendations of the confidential closed session. That up? I can't read it from here. I hope so. That's Sorry there. That the recommendations for FIN 006A-26 property matter open space acquisition 30 Cullwalla Street, South Hurstville, considered in closed session, be confirmed as recommendations of this committee. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Marnie, Councillor Liu. All those in favour say aye. All those against? I declare the motion carried. There being no other business on the agenda, I declare this meeting closed at 6:33 p.m.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Community and Culture Committee meeting of Monday, the 9th of February, 2026. I'll declare the meeting open at 6:36 p.m. I'll start with an acknowledgement of the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. I'd like to pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Apologies. We have received a number of apologies this evening. We have received apologies from the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Stratokopoulos, Councillor Demoski, Councillors Gow, Pun and Arthur. And I think everybody else is present. So I'll just call for a mover and a seconder, please. So moved by Councillor Jamieson and seconded by Councillor Mort. We'll just call for all those in favour. Anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that carried. We don't have any requests to attend the meeting via audio link. We can't do that anyway. Our notice of live streaming of council meetings, staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded for minute taking purposes and is also being broadcast live to the public on council's website in accordance with section 5 of council's code of meeting practice. The recording will be made available on council's website. The order of business is as shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed or confidential session according to section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Disclosures of interest. We have received one from Councillor Marnie, who has declared a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item COM 002-26 Quarterly Community Property Report, 1st of October 25 to 31 December 25, for the reason that he is a member of the Cobra Bay Progress Association. Councillor Marnie will remain in the meeting and take part in the consideration of this item. Have also received a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest from Councillor Jamieson, who has disclosed a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in item COM 003-26 T25 /011, the Ken Rosewall Tennis Centre Management Agreement, for the reason that she went to school with the sister of the current Ken Rosewall management team and was asked for special consideration. Councillor Jamieson will remain in the meeting and take part in the consideration of this item. Do any other councillors have any interest to declare? Take that as a no. Okay, our first item then would be the confirmation of minutes of previous meetings, and that would be the meeting of the Community and Culture Committee held on 10th of November 2025. I'd like to call for a mover and a seconder, please. So that's moved by Councillor Mort and seconded by Councillor Allison, I think that was. Okay. Sorry.
It pops up here with answers.
Oh, does it? I'm looking up there. Okay, thank you. Sorry, to get used to it. A bit rusty. So we will put that to the meeting. All those in favour, please say aye. Anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that carried, which brings us to our first report, which is COM 002-26, the Quarterly Community Property Report, 1 October 2025 to 31 December 25. And before we go to our report on this item, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Liu and seconded by Councillor Allison. I think that was. Sorry if I got that wrong.
More.
Oh, it was Councillor Mort? Okay, sorry. Great. Okay. Sorry, guys, we'll get there. And now we're going to go to Manager Margaret Lee, who is going to provide us with an overview of this report. Ms. Lee, thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair. Good evening, councillors. So this is our quarterly community property portfolio report outlining leases and licences that were executed in the reporting period, being 1st of October to 31st of December 2025. In that particular reporting period, there were no leases or licences that were executed or undertaken via a EOI process. However, there were 3 community facilities that were advertised for a 28-day public notice period in accordance with Council's community lease and licence policy outlined in the report, being 25 Cook Street, Mortdale, 49 English Street, Cogra, and 643A Kings Georges Road, Penshurst. Happy to take on any questions.
Councillors, do we have any questions for Ms. Lee?
Just got one. Yes. Just for those 3 properties that have been advertised in that period, what is the timings? Like, when do you expect the that to be finalised and the successful people to be notified?
To you, Madam Chair, Madam Mayor. So depending on the property type, we would have normally after the public notice period, we would then have the draft terms signed by the proposed tenants, and then it would just take the time it takes for both parties to execute the document. So it could be 1 or 2 months.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Jamieson.
Yep, I just had a question. Just with 25 Cook Street, how long is the lease going to be for?
Through you, Madam Chair. So for 25 Cook Street, Mortdale, it has the standard duration of 5 years, which is consistent with Council's community lease and licence policy.
Thanks, Ms. Lee. Any other questions, councillors? I just have one, and it's just really I've noticed this particular paper. A lot of the leases expired some time ago, and so I would assume they're just on a month-to-month basis. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair, are you talking particularly about the Scout Halls and Girl Guides? Yeah, we recognise that they are on very expired contracts, and we're awaiting the outcome of a property strategy that looks at council's commercial and community properties to give direction on these property holdings moving forward. So we expect to have the outcome of that property strategy to give us that direction in the coming months.
Great, thanks very much, Ms. Lee. So, councillors, if there are,
the mayor has another question. Just on 643A King George's Road, is that the youth centre at Penshurst Park?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is the storage room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Councillor Jamieson.
Just another question. So is the 25 Cook Street the men's shed?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, it is.
Sorry. And what about what's the one next to it? 23? Or are they going to be done? So that one's going to be for 5 years. So.
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, just clarifying your question, councillor.
Yes, so because there's 2 properties, are they each treated differently? Because there's one for the mention and then there's one that's vacant.
Through you, Madam Chair, so 25 Cook Street, Mortdale is within council's community property portfolio, whereas next door is not. That's as part of council's strategic property portfolio. So yes, to answer your question, they are treated differently.
Through you, Madam Chair, just further to that, there is a demolition clause in there and a relocation clause, noting that the Mortdale Master Plan may commence before that 5-year period. So we would need to relocate the men's shed to a suitable property.
Councillors, any further questions? If not, we'll move this item. All those in favour? Anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that one carried. Our next item is COM 003-26 T25/011 Ken Rosewell Tennis Centre Management Agreement. And before we go to a report, I'll just call for a mover and a seconder for that one, please. So that was Councillor Mort and Councillor Jamieson. And thank you. And we will now go to our manager, Margaret Lee, who will give us a report on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. So this is a report based on the outcome of a tender process. As per the report, there were 2 submissions, and based on a number of reasons outlined in the detailed confidential attachment, it is recommended that council declines both tender submissions to enter into a negotiation process with both parties, and then for a further report to come to council outlining the successful applicant of the 2 tenderers.
Thanks, Ms. Lee. Now, councillors, if we have any questions of the director or the manager, we are going to need to move into our closed session. So can I just ask if we do have questions? Councillor Jamieson, you do? And Mayor? Okay, we will move into closed session. So we'll just go through that process now. So at this stage of the meeting, being 6:47 p.m, I hereby advise that the meeting will move into a confidential closed session in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993. This action is being taken to allow discussion of the confidential attachments to the item COM 003-26 T25/011 Ken Rosewell Tennis Centre Management Agreement. Accordingly, members of the press and public are excluded from the closed session, and access to the confidential documents relating to the item considered during the course of the closed session will be withheld. The procedure to move into closed session: can the Director, Community and Culture inform the committee if any representations have been received from the public gallery that the item should not be discussed in closed session? There have been none. Thank you. Are there any objections from the public gallery to the meeting moving into closed sessions? Doesn't look like it. Therefore, I'll put a procedural motion as follows: that in accordance with Section 10A, Clause 2 of the Local Government Act 1993, Council enters into a confidential closed session to discuss the confidential attachments to item COM 003-26 T25/011 Ken Rosewell Tennis Centre Management Agreement. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? So that was Councillor Mort and Councillor Allison that have moved that, and we'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? Is there anybody against? Okay, then that's been carried. Can I please request that staff cease webcasting and close the doors of the meeting room to the public, please? All to come back in. And I think we're back live. And we are now dealing with item COM. We've been in confidential. We're dealing with item COM 003-26, which is T25/011, the Ken Rosewell Tennis Centre Management Agreement. The item was moved by Councillor Mort and Councillor Jamieson. So now it's time for us to vote on that recommendation as it appears in the business paper. I don't need to read that, do I? Yeah, it is as it appears in the business paper. So councillors, I will call for you to vote on this. So all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that carried. Thank you. We'll move to our next item now, which is CCL 135-25, deferred from the 8th of December 2025 council meeting, the closed circuit television in Georges River. And firstly, I'll need a mover and a seconder for this. And Councillor Jamieson and Councillor Mort are moving that. Thank you, councillors. And I'll now call on Manager Estelle Mark to please provide us with an overview of this report. Thank you.
For you, Madam Chair. Thank you and good evening, everyone. Just a quick introduction, as I've started as a community impact manager 2 weeks ago. So I'm Estelle Mark, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight and to present the report on community safety. I'd like to start by paying my respect as well to the Digital people, the traditional custodians of this land. So you would have seen the report last year. It now has a policy attached in Resolution F. So we are seeking your endorsement for this policy together with an assessment matrix to ensure we continue to respond to safety concerns in a consistent, evidence-based and financially responsive way. So I'd like to make a note first that CCTV is valuable, but it's not a standalone solution, and it is part of a larger safety framework. So we pair it with environmental design, policy partnerships, vandalism responses, lightning upgrades, youth engagement programs, and our community safety education programs. And all this together helps us keep crime low across the LGA and maintain both actual and perceived safety. So this report's been informed by data from both our strong engagement with San South Police, community feedback, desktop research and council service requests. And currently the data suggests that Hurstville and Kogarah still remains high priority areas for further CCTV as they have higher crime and most police requests. Moving forward, we're requesting your endorsement for 2 key elements. The first one being a CCTV assessment tool that provides a way to respond to our community concerns, applying a consistent and evidence-based framework. So it is a transparent and fair process for all future requests for CCTV. And it includes a weight system, which provide a score based on risk, data, feasibility, and cost, so we can maximize the impact of every dollar we invest in CCTV. The second element for endorsement is the CCTV operations policy. So this updated policy ensures that we are compliant with current New South Wales legislation, that we include strong privacy protections, and we are clear on how CCTV can and cannot be used. So these elements help us strengthen the way we deliver our community safety, keeping it transparent, evidence-based, and financially responsible. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Mark. Questions? Councillor Wang.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. So I think I raised this question at last the council meeting. Is probably the director would know. I'm under the impression this motion approved by the council for the CCTV at the Hurstville Aquatic Centre. I thought it would be included in the scope, may not be installed now. But I just want to confirm if that one was included in the scope.
Through you, Madam Chair, when you say included in the scope of what, sorry?
Say, for example, so when we talk about the motion, so the executive summary, it mentioned a few motions. I didn't see that one, which is NM014-24. I just want to just because that's approved the motion like 2 or 3 years ago. I just want to say to have that one in the scope for assessments and maybe for future funding opportunities. So that's my question. Awesome.
Through you, Madam Chair, it is outlined as one of the notices of motion that we reviewed in the executive summary there. There's a list of resolutions that were considered. Insofar as that specific CCTV request at Hurstville Aquatic Centre, I know the budget bid has previously been put in and not got through for council funding. If you run it through, I think I said in December, if you run it through the matrix that's being created, it wouldn't be recommended. So where we didn't have a matrix and a policy previously, we now do. So we've run those scenarios through the matrix along with the other resolutions, and it's determined that it's not required.
Okay, so it's in the attachment somewhere assessed. Is that what I'm saying? Is that what you're saying?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the individual assessments that we've run through are not in the attachment. In the body of the report, it talks to the key trends and themes and where we would and wouldn't recommend CCTV. So when you look at the matrix, it talks to crime statistics, consultation with the police, and the weighting of that specific item, has not met the criteria. It's not recommended. It hasn't come out as a high priority, and it's not recommended for funding.
So where's the reference to that process? And it's in this document, or?
Through you, Madam Chair. So the matrix is attached. I can personally sit there. I can show you the scoring offline of each of the items, but we're just getting the actual matrix endorsed for any request.
Okay, so take it offline with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Wang. Other questions, councillors? Mayor?
Yes, I have a question. So there has been some representation from Pensis RSL's sub-branch in relation to their desire to have CCTV monitoring the War Memorial at Penshurst. So my first question is, would the policy allow council to grant landowners consent to an RSL sub-branch to install and monitor CCTV at their own expense to monitor a war memorial?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think the Director of Assets and Infrastructure will answer that one.
Through you, Madam Chair. No, the policy is clear in that council would not grant landowners consent to a third party to operate CCTV on public land.
And could you just outline the reason for that?
So there's a bunch of privacy legislation and other legislation detailed in that policy. And that policy frames the guidelines set out by the state government in terms of balancing you know, an individual's need for privacy with community safety. So for that reason, any CCTV on public land would be owned and operated by council, not by a third party.
Thank you. I just have a subsequent question. Does the policy allow an exception for CCTV based on your response that we can't allow the CCTV to be monitored by a third party? Does the policy allow an exception for CCTV to be installed by council on council land where funding was provided to council by a third party? In particular, we've had this request from the Penshurst RSL sub-branch.
Through you, Madam Chair. So the policy sets that framework and the guidelines for where council would consider installation and operation of CCTV on public land. Where that funding comes from has no impact in terms of application of the policy. I guess one of the key considerations is that demonstrated public safety benefit. So any CCTV installation should be supported by evidence that CCTV is an appropriate response to the identified issues. And that's where it ties into that a CCTV assessment tool as part of the report.
Can I just ask a follow-up question on that? Based on the fact that there has been a request like by Penshurst RSL, clearly they want to get on the front foot to try to prevent anything, and people do perceive CCTV as a preventative measure. Is there anything legally that would prevent council from allowing that to happen, or is this just something that has been determined through the tool that we have and the current policy that we've created, which noting that's going out on exhibition as well? What if we had a number of representations in the community from people in support of Penshurst RSL's bid, for example? Is there anything legally that would prevent us from providing that CCTV at that location?
Through you, Madam Chair, in terms of council operating CCTV, provided it fits within our policy, then there's nothing legally outside our policy, which is based on the current legislation, preventing us from installing CCTV at a particular location.
Councillors, are there? Oh, Councillor Jamieson.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked for multiple different types of CCTV, and I've always been not back. So I guess my question is, first of all, how far, if we did allow Penshurst RSL, and it's not, I understand that it hasn't been any crimes, and if we go through that issue, I know that Penshurst shops have had crimes, but again, they've used other methods. I guess what concern is once you start, I guess it's the whole purpose of the matrix that we have some sort of priority system to do that. But how else and what other ways can we actually improve the safeties or the perceived safety?
Madam Chair, so as we mentioned, we do have a range of programs, including our lightning upgrades, our environmental design, which really improve the perceived and the actual safety. We do have partnership with police, youth engagement programs, community safety education programs as well. So it is, the evidence shows that not one measure is what is going to improve safety, but it is actually the combination of measures.
And I guess I'm just going on from that, but I know that there've been parts where there's women that have been raped, and I guess that goes with the priority that I appreciate that the RSO is very, very important to the community, but it's still something that's not a human being. So I'm just conscious. I know it might be controversial, but I think we've got to be sensitive. And unless there is a danger, and I think we have a commitment from the council that if anything goes wrong or any damage, that we will fix that straight away. And I think that's probably the most important thing, that we take responsibility of if anything's damaged.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll take that more as a comment around the sentiment towards it. But yes, it's council's asset. So if it was to be damaged, we would be maintaining that asset.
Thanks, councillors. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Jamieson or Mort, did you wish to speak to this at all? Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, we'll put this one to a vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Is there anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that one carried. Thank you. We'll move to our next item, which is COM 004-26, the place naming policy review, results of community consultation. And I will call for a mover and a seconder for this. And that would be Councillor Mort is moving it. And is that Councillor Borg?
Yes.
And
I just would like to propose a minor. I would just like to propose a minor amendment to the recommendation, which I think is on screen. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's just I'm not entirely sure of the wording. Is it part C? Is the addition? Yes. So part C, that point 2.5.2 of the draft policy be updated as follows. So this is the conditions of which council would consider changing the name of a place name. There's a list of 5 or so reasons why they would consider it, and on this particular one it currently reads the name is considered defamatory or derogatory, so it's just adding to that the name is considered offensive, discriminatory, derogatory, or brings council into disrepute. So it's just adding those
Part C.
In part C, yeah. So the point 2.5.2 of the policy, adding the words offensive and or brings council into disrepute. So that is just widening the reasons of which council could in the future change the name of the place. So for example, if a council asset was named after somebody who in the future was found guilty of a crime or found to be corrupt, that could be considered to be bringing council into disrepute, and we could make a decision to change the name.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Councillor Morty, happy to accept that amendment?
Absolutely.
So that becomes a new part C, and the old part C will become part D that council accepts. What is it? Adopts, sorry, the revised draft place naming policy. Can't read it from up here. Okay, councillors, was there any discussion on this? No, you're happy with that, councillors? Any further discussion at all? Councillor Moore? No? Okay. Well, if that's the case, we will move it. So all those in favour, please say aye. Anyone against? Okay, we'll declare that carried. That was our final item of the evening, and there being no other business on the agenda, I'll declare this meeting closed at 7:19 p.m. And thank you everyone for your attendance. And thank you.
Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Environment and Planning Committee. I declare this meeting open at 7:22 p.m. Acknowledgement of country. I acknowledge the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the George River area. I pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples who live, work and meet on these lands. Apologies. I have apologies from Deputy Mayor Councillor Stratakopoulos, Councillor Demoski, Councillor Arthur, Councillor Pun and Councillor Gow. Has the General Manager received any other apologies? Okay, can I please have a motion to accept apologies for tonight's meeting? Moved by Councillor Jamieson, seconded by Councillor Ancelotti. Thank you. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Anybody against? Thank you. I declare that carried. May I request to attend by audio visual link. Notice of live streaming of committee meeting. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded live for minute taking purposes and is also being broadcast live to the public on Council's website in accordance with Section 5 of Council's Code of Meeting Practice. The recording will be made available on Council's website. Code of Meeting Practice, the order of business is as shown in the agenda, which has been made available. Staff and public are reminded that this meeting is open. Doors to the meeting room are to be left open unless the meeting moves into a closed confidential session, according to Section 14 of the Code of Meeting Practice. Only if the meeting moves into a closed confidential session will the public broadcasting of the meeting be suspended. Council's Code of Meeting Practice prohibits the electronic recording of meetings without the express permission of Council. Mobile phones must be turned to silent during the meeting. Disclosure of interest. Do any council have any interest to declare? Okay, there are no disclosure of interest tonight. First item is confirmation of minutes of previous meeting, which is confirmation of the minutes of the Environment and Planning Committee meeting held on 10th of November 2025. Can I call for a mover and seconder? Thank you. Councillor Jamieson and Councillor Lansbury. Thank you. Okay, can I call for a vote on those minutes, please? All those in favour, please say aye. Anybody against? Thank you. I believe that carried. The first committee report we have is ENV 00226, enforcing the trailer parking regulations and addressing residents' concerns. Can I get a mover and second that report, please? Councillor Jamieson and Councillor Mort. Thank you. And before we go to any discussion, Mr. Bonges from the staff is going to give us an overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to provide a brief to Council on the process implemented by Council Rangers regarding trailer parking in response to Resolution NM 006-25 dated 24th February 2025, which will include as minimum information on the following: clarifying legislation regarding the current legislation regarding the parking of boats and trailers in public spaces, outline current procedures that are used by the Rangers team to enforce that legislation, addressing resident concerns and making plans for improvement. And currently, the Rangers team or councils across New South Wales use two pieces of legislation to deal with trailers, those being the Public Space and Unattended Properties Act 2021 and the State Environment Planning Policy, Industry and Employment 2021 SEP. The PSUP Act, or the Public Spaces Unattended Property, is the primary act that we use for this this purpose. One of the key aspects of this legislation relates to dealing with unregistered and abandoned vehicles, but also gives a discretionary provision to deal with registered vehicles, which also includes trailers and boats, on trailers, of course. This is a discretionary power. However, the legislation doesn't provide a blanket rule requiring all vehicles to be moved within 28 days. The Office of Local Government did provide a set of guidelines that was expected to assist council with enforcing this legislation. Unfortunately, it falls far short of providing that guidance. And instead, councils across New South Wales have had to take on their own approach to this. One of the key terms that's used in the guidelines is that council officers must use a common sense approach. Common sense is not normally referred to in legislation, but this is what was used by the Office of Local Government. In addition to the PSUP Act, as I mentioned, the SEP also provides other powers to deal with trailers, particularly advertising trailers. And this is a tool that we use quite frequently for vehicles that are displaying advertising in public areas, which are obtaining commercial advantage through a placement of these vehicles on transport corridors. In relation to the enforcement side of it, due to the lack of information through the guidelines, the Rangers team developed their own procedures, which have been adopted and reviewed by looking through what other councils do. And this has been effective. It gives us an approach which looks at the actual risk to the public in comparison to other vehicles. Just for a little bit of background, when the Act commenced in 2022, the council received, well, since 2022, the council received over 6,200 requests regarding abandoned vehicles. That's quite considerable. Of those, 801 or 13% related to trailers. Unfortunately, our systems don't allow us to filter information down to whether they're registered or unregistered, but a vast majority of those vehicles were unregistered. In the 3 years prior to the adoption of the PSUP Act, there were 2,944 abandoned vehicle requests, and of those, 362 or 12% related to trailers. So across that 6-year period, the number of trailers by percentage has been fairly consistent. The Rangers team are going to continue to look at these vehicles, and obviously we look at the impact on residents, and we take a case-by-case basis. The key thing is we need to look at vehicles, the impact on safety. We don't want to be drawn into neighbourhood disputes, other things which could bring council into contention. The final point of that was ensuring public streets are accessible and safe. Look, this is an admirable thing to try and do, but at the present, it's not an achievable goal. While enforcement may assist in improving parking availability, factors including inadequate or outdated parking legislation, increased population and housing density targets negatively impact that goal. And as a last point, we will be seeking through the OLG, or the Office of Local Government, whenever an opportunity arises to review the PSUP Act, to make a recommendation that the information and the guidelines relating to registered or abandoned vehicles are updated to make them more concise so they can be consistently enforced across the whole of New South Wales. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ponges. Do any councillors have any questions or comments? Councillor Wayne.
Okay, thank you. Through your chair. And so my question is, because I have some experience for this one. So just in layman's terms, how does it help the situation, comparing with before? My experience is there's some abandoned vehicles trailed in public space for months, or not even years, but not fixed by the council. So that's what this piece of change would help to fix that problem.
You through the chair. Thank you, through the chair. Look, this piece of legislation was brought to allow councils to deal with those vehicles that are registered, that are left on the road for lengthy periods. And we have actually seized some vehicles that are registered, but we have set up criteria that are strong criteria and consistent. So we look at the vehicle itself. So is it unroadworthy? Is there a build-up of leaf litter? Are there trees growing out of it, for example, which we have dealt with before with a boat? But we also have to take into consideration some people may go overseas for months. We don't want to be in a situation where we get a complaint about a motor vehicle, perhaps, because we have to treat trailers and motor vehicles the same, that we go in and start a process which ends up taking a vehicle, it gets sold, the person comes back from overseas and they want to know where their vehicle is. So it has to be a reasonable approach, and that's why we look at the risk to the public. But those factors, as I said, does the vehicle look abandoned? A reasonable person can look at something and go, it looks abandoned. That's what gives us the impetus to start an investigation.
Okay, just a follow-up question. So in this case, so I reported several times, there's no doubt it's abandoned. It's just a matter of, I think it's the ranger's resource and priority, depends where it's abandoned. So would this help? Yeah.
Through the chair, yes. Look, we have limited resources. Our focus is primarily on matters that are an immediate danger to the public. We don't want to be drawn into something where it's where a vehicle is no more of a danger than another vehicle that's legally parked and has only been there for 2 or 3 days. As I said, we do go out and deal with these vehicles, but it needs to be an immediate amenity or safety issue, and it's clear to us that it has been left unattended or abandoned. But just to follow that up as a secondary, we will be seeking through the OLG, as I mentioned. I was speaking to them midway through last year, and they were looking to put out a questionnaire again or to review the act. So if that does come through, then we will take the opportunity to seek clearer legislation that supports us.
I have
Thanks, Mr. Bonges. Councillor Jamieson.
Oh, sorry, thanks. I just had a question because I've had a person that said that a abandoned vehicle wasn't, but I suspect that it's actually somebody living in there and they've just parked in there. So how would you deal with that? That wouldn't be, if you've seen what they call abandoned vehicle, but I don't know if it is or not. I wouldn't think so.
Sorry, through the chair, just to clarify, do you mean that there was a person living in the vehicle?
I think there was, but it looked like somebody had been living in there, but it was left there, like that's their living spot.
Through the chair, yes, there is a provision under the PSAP Act that deals with vehicles or items belonging to a homeless person. It gets very difficult when we have to deal with those. In those sort of situations, we call on the police to assist because we don't want to be in a situation where someone is sleeping rough and then we are seen to be overzealous or heavy-handed in moving their vehicle or taking it when that's their only source of comfort.
Anybody in the council have any questions or comments? Councillor Anzalotti.
Yeah, thank you. The report was really detailed and it sort of made me realise that council's hands are really tied with the legislation. So can we really advocate the New South Wales government for legislative reform? Can we push this? Because this is something that residents, they're so frustrated with it. And it's not just cars that are parked there for 2 and 3 days. There's residents along the B streets there or Roberts Avenue and into Fair Avenue where you've got businesses who have got cars in those streets and using them as holding lots for their businesses for months on end. So we do need greater clarity over what we can do to alleviate the frustrations of the community and not just common sense of the residents, but business owners as well. Yeah.
Yes, through the chair. Thank you for that question. Yeah, look, yes, we definitely want to. I suppose I shouldn't be saying this, but I was on the committee that helped draft this legislation. I made numerous recommendations, as did the group for it. Funnily enough, very few of those actually got up. One of those was to deal with unregistered and unroadworthy vehicles, to be able to seize them straight away. At the moment, the process for dealing with even an unregistered vehicle that stands out on the street now can take over a month. And that, I think that's way too long. And especially if you've got a vehicle that's unroadworthy, it's missing tyres, it's rusty, those sort of things need to be dealt with a lot quicker for public safety and amenity. So yes, definitely we will be advocating for that, and more than happy to seek some common sense from the state government for this legislation.
Can I ask another question? I think Canada Bay Council, just talking at the local government conference, because we did put that motion forward, I think Canada Bay, a couple of councillors were talking about the possibility of their council introducing some target signage, which restricts trailers and boats in built-up areas, especially around schools. I don't know if that is a possibility. That's something that we could look into, if that's even something that's liable or legal.
Through the chair, I can't really comment on that. That'd be something for the traffic engineers to deal with. But one of my suggestions, if I can make that suggestion, is looking at removing trailers and particularly trailers, I'll say, from this piece of legislation as a impetus to get them to move, and look at moving it into Road Rules 2014 and somewhat replicate what exists for heavy vehicles. So if a heavy vehicle is left on a road for any more than an hour, it can be issued a fine immediately. Possibly something like that could apply to trailers, that if it's left on a length of road for longer than 7 days, then they can be issued a warning, a fine, and then the process for taking it into possession through the PSUB Act can then commence. But once there's that quantum of evidence to say that it's been left there, it gives us the proof to commence proper regulatory action.
Thanks, Mr. Hodges. Just like to ask the madam a comment.
Yeah, just in regard to Councillor Anzalotti's comments about advocating to the state government, I understand that the legislation was put out for review earlier last year. Would that be correct? And Council provided a detailed submission on that. Am I got that right or wrong?
Through the chair, yes, to an extent. The Office of Local Government put out a discussion paper. They didn't really explain that it was just to get the temperature of the state on this legislation as opposed to a meaningful check in legislation. So the intent, I believe, possibly towards the end of this year, depending on other circumstances throughout the state, was to commence a formal review of the Act. Because I believe it came in 2021 officially, so it's about due for a review.
Well, just in regards to our advocacy, I know that you provided me with detailed information and support for the motion that I put forward to this council, which was adopted and then presented to the Local Government New South Wales Conference to add to their advocacy platform to see change on this from the New South Wales Government. So I thank you for that detailed information, and it was we were able to put forward a detailed submission, and I understand at the conference that was adopted. So hopefully, Local Government New South Wales will be on board with us to also be advocating for some of the changes that you have outlined. Will make this better for your officers to be able to meet the community's expectations with this legislation, because I think that's what we can't currently do. We're a bit hamstrung to meet the expectations of the community under the current legislation. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do any councillors have any other questions or comments? Okay, in that case, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Anybody against? I declare the motion carried. Thank you. The next item is ENV 00326, review of domestic waste management service charges applied to property owners since amalgamation. And can I get a move and second on that report, please? Councillor Leung, Councillor Lansbury, thank you. And before we go to discussion, Mr. Spooner, who's the Manager of Environment, Health and Regulatory Services, is going to give us an overview. Thank you.
Yes. Right, here we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report requested that we identify where residents may have been charged for more services than had been provided. And there were a number of examples which unfolded as part of the bin rollout program that occurred midway through last year. We also found a number of properties that actually had more bins than they're actually paying for as well. So it was a good process to go through to, I guess, rationalise and review, so we can make sure that what was on our rates notice was being provided to the residents. The major issue that we identified came about through, I guess, historical situation back in 2018. Prior to 2018, if you lived in the former Cogra and wanted additional individual bins, you were charged a complete service, so that would be 3 bins. When the bin rollout occurred, people found that they were getting actually more bins than what they thought they were being charged for, but in fact, they were actually being charged for 2 lots of domestic waste bins. So if you wanted an extra red lid bin, you would have been charged for 2 services. So that would be 2 reds, 2 yellows and 2 greens. In 2018, when the services and conditions and fees and charges were harmonised, the option was provided just to pay for that extra bin by itself. So an individual red, individual green or individual yellow. When the bin rolled out happened and people got their bins, they said, well, you've given me 6 bins, I should only have 4 bins. That we started reviewing and found out at that point that yes, that was the case, that was back in 2018, those new fees and charges hadn't been applied. As we worked through the process, we identified there was quite a few people who'd contacted us, and to be fair and equitable about the process, we went through and we audited all of our rates notices in relation to those premises who may have had that particular service. As a result of that, there were about 360 premises that were identified who had that dual service. Out of that, there was 158 that were being overcharged. We've worked our way through those, and that reconciliation process will be completed by the end of this financial year. So once that is done, every property will be receiving the right number of bins and paying for the right number of bins in the LGA, and would have been refunded, or they would have had a credit applied to their rates. Moving forward, and the NOM requested that we talk about how we can prevent this from happening, and one of the key things is the new technology into the contract, which is the RFID readers, which will tell us what bins are being collected and serviced from each property, so we'll know exactly how many bins are at each property being serviced each week. We also have a lot of information on our website. The rates notice contains more information that it has in relation to waste fees and charges, but also has a link through a RFID code back to the website, which people can then see what does my waste fee relate to, and there'll be figures and it'll show you exactly what services you're paying for. So hopefully it'll make it a little more transparent and remove any myths around about waste fees and services. But of course, people can contact the waste hotline and seek advice on what waste services they currently have or would like to have moving forward. But look, the report addresses all the particular individual requests in that NOM, and the recommendation is that the information contained in the report be noted. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Spooner. Do any council have any questions? Councillor Lansbury. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Spooner. Look, the report's good. It sort of answered a lot of the questions that I had about this, because I did actually have a couple of inquiries from residents, predominantly former Cogra. One of the things that seems to be a common theme is people that had bought the property and acquired the additional bins, and they wouldn't really be clear probably on what actual their rates were breaking down. And one of the things I flagged with you, and I think the director, was if that could be detailed on their rates notice. You've got 2 green bins, 1 yellow, 1 red. Is what you're saying the rates notices going forward will have a link that will say you've got 2 green bins, you've got, is it like an individual QR code or something like that? Is that how it's going to work, or your property address?
Through the chair, I might seek clarification, but my understanding is that the waste service charge will still appear on the rates. So standard waste charge and the additional waste charge that you would get you could then go to the website, which would then tell you what that waste charge would relate to. So it wouldn't relate to an individual property, but it'd be more generic to say that if you're paying $709, this is what $709 gives you in relation to waste fees and charges. So the rate notice doesn't say you get 2 green, 1 red, 1 yellow. You'd have to deduce that by going to the website. It would say what your fees would be and what that would cover, but it's very generic. Is that correct, Director?
Through the chair, it is correct. I think we acknowledged and we looked at it, it was a little vague, so it probably didn't help inform people enough to question and query their bills. So the waste team and the rates have worked on the wording because it was a generic sort of just charge was written. So we've tried to put extra information to then prompt them to then potentially even use the QR code and check. Whereas it was probably a little too vague to even prompt, and they would have to search kind of through the website to even try and find the information. So we've really narrowed them to the point to verify their bill a lot more clearly. So I think hopefully it helps. It would be great if we had real time, but that's something we can't do at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Parker, Mrs. Spooner. Any other councillors, any questions or comments? Okay, in that case, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour, Lucy, aye. All right. Anyone against? I'll declare the motion carried. And there being no other business on the agenda, I declare the meeting closed at 7:48 p.m. Thanks, everyone.